We'll get started here in just a minute, but we're trying to get someone invited on, and Google Hangouts is not cooperating with the invite.
Oh, you can just do it directly. I'm already in. I got in just from the discussion group, so you can both do the same thing.
Well, you're just watching it, though.
Oh, because you want to be, that's true.
Yeah, I was trying to get him actually onto the thing. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get started. We can't get the invites working. I really like the Hangout on air format, but everything else around it is just terrible. So, so we're just going to go with what we got. So, so we've got a few people on. Thanks for lining in on it. We don't have a ton of stuff to cover. I'm going to update our development status again, where we're at on a couple different efforts, and then the big thing to discuss is the issues that we're having with applets, especially Chrome. And then we can take any questions. If you're on the Hangout page, there should be a Q&A section over to the right, and you can post questions there, and we will have a look at them. So, or we'll answer them.
It's showing your face and not the...
Why? Why is it doing that?
I think you just did it when you switched to full screen.
But that's not what I told it to do.
That's you.
I guess that's the one. What now?
Yeah, there's a delay.
Man. Okay. Anyways, I'm going to have to presume that this is working properly now. Right. Agenda. Development status. We'll talk about 165 and 17. Chromageddon coming up, and then Q&A for anything that we happen to have. Any question you might happen to have. So development status. 165 is another maintenance release in the 1.6 line. The primary motivator for it is more security fixes. We've been working a lot on trying to audit the application, find kind of standard hackable weaknesses in it. Previously, XNAT has tended to be relatively isolated, had tended to be relatively isolated on networks and within smaller labs and stuff. We are in kind of bigger organizations now, bigger installations, more exposure to kind of outside threats and attack vectors. So we've really been working pretty hard to find areas where for SQL injection, cross-site scripting attacks, all kinds of things, all the standard ways that you can attack a web application, and getting fixes in those. And 165 will actually have a full security audit as part of the release process. So we're going through and doing our standard QA regression tests, and part of that will be running automated security tests against the web application. So that it should, in theory, be our most secure release coming up. Performance. There are a number of performance enhancements and improvements in this version. Tim Olson specifically went through and looked at areas where we had performance bottlenecks and took steps to alleviate those. And if I could get him invited onto this, I would let him talk about it. That was sort of my plan, but he can't seem to get the invite. So maybe he can post the discussion group when we do in the release notes when we do the 165 release, and talk about the stuff that's in there. We've got these build problems coming up now that people are running into. That is a legacy of the Maven build tool at the heart of the XNAT builder, and the problem is that the Maven Central repository seems to have decommissioned their Maven 1 repository. So most of the things that people are seeing are actually jars that are used as part of the build there are really two levels of dependencies for Maven 1. There are dependencies for the builder, for Maven itself, and for the things it's doing in the build, and then for actually building the application dependencies for the web application itself. So most of what we're seeing right now are actually dependencies required for the builder. And in Maven 2 and 3 terms, this is really like Maven plugins, which that concept was there for Maven 1, but not in quite the same way. And then just regular build dependencies. So we've stood up a Maven 1 repo on our own Maven server, added the URL for that into the properties for the Maven build, and that has at least gotten us back to building properly here at the lab. I think most of it is stuff that we can work around, and we seem to have gotten that fixed for the 1.6.5 release. If you're on an earlier release and you're having these problems, there's already been a few back and forth in the discussion group. So, but if you continue to run into the problem, just go ahead and let us know. Probably best to post onto the discussion group, and we can address it there so everyone else can see the solutions. UI updates, the administration pages, user creation, user list, groups, data types, etc. Just basically cleaned up a lot of the stuff, made things work better. Moved stuff out of JavaScript alerts into our own Xmodal framework, make some not block browser execution. Just looks better, works better. We have a new functionality for splitting pet MR data. I don't know how many people out there are using, right now, I think that this is limited to the Siemens Biograph MMR scanner, which is a very new and very expensive piece of equipment. But I do know that it's out there. We have one or two of them here at WashU. I know that some of the labs in the UK, UCL, have these PET-MR scanners. And for some cases, there are people have pipeline processing that have a lot of trouble working with the combined PET-MR sessions, and would prefer to have these separated into separate PET session and MR session. So all of the MR goes to one, and well, all of the PET goes to one, and all of the MR goes, and other things, structured reports and things like that, go to the MR session. How that split works is configurable, and that will be documented, and we'll also have a default way of managing it. If you don't have this and you don't need it, or you're fine with PET MRs, then it won't affect you. But if you do have issues around being able to process that kind of data, it will be in there. And lastly, this kind of goes to one of the security fixes, but it's come up enough that we need to call it out separately, which is the ability to restrict project creation to admins. And previously, we sort of had a pretty laissez-faire model. If you had a user account, you could create a project, put data in it. Now that we have systems where there are people who, a lot of people who are just consuming data, and you don't want them to be able to create projects and put stuff in and do things, you have the ability to go into the configuration pages and select to restrict project creation to admin. So only administrators will be able to create new projects. Once you've done that, you can assign other people to be owners of the projects, the same way that you can now. Those people that have the capability of doing anything on the project that you can do, for adding other users, adding pipelines, putting in data, creating subjects, all that standard stuff. But it's just to reduce the ability of people who don't really know what they're doing or have any business doing things, just creating projects willy-nilly and creating kind of a lot of noise on the system. So that was there's been a lot of people requesting that, because I guess users have been getting kind of sassy. So so the next thing we'll have after 1.6.5. So 1.6.5, when that goes out, we're going to be updating a lot of operational deployments. That'll take us a little time afterwards. So CNDA will be getting updated. XNAT Central will be getting updated. If you've been on one of the previous teleconferences and we talked about the TIP system, that will be getting updated. And I think in September we're going to create an instance of TIP that will have all fake patient data on it. And we'll probably try to do a demo of TIP then, because it's got some pretty cool capabilities in terms of being able to pull DICOM, push DICOM out to clinical packs. But we can't really show it right now because we are actually working with the some of the clinical centers at the hospital to which the WashU Medical School is attached. And so it's real patient data, and obviously for HIPAA reasons we can't demo that. So we'll set up a fake PACS with maybe we'll use the Muppets or something like that. I don't think they'll sue us for HIPAA violations. So, so that'll take us a little bit of time to get all of those things updated and redeployed. We're hoping for 165 to go out. Right now we're aiming to have a final release next Friday. That will depend if we run into any security issues that we haven't already identified, and we're going to be hitting it pretty hard starting today with that. So once that's done and our operational deployments are done, we'll be back to 1.7, and we're hoping for we're planning on an end-of-year release, hopefully before the Christmas holidays and winter break, where everything kind of tends to go dormant. So that's ongoing development after 165 is released. We'll be moving all new XNAT code into the 1.7 development at that point. And the only thing that we'll be doing back on 1.6 at that point will be security. So if there is a 1.6, it will, or sorry, a 1.6.6 or a 1.6.5.1, it will just be security stuff. 1.7 is going to require some changes to module development patterns. We're not quite sure what exactly that will consist of at this point, but 1.7 is going to be released as a web application. If there are builder issues at that point, it should only be us having builder issues, not you. So not the users. We'll be possibly releasing as a war. Will be you might need to expand. We'll have to see exactly how that works, but it will require some change to that. We're going to try to make it as minimal as possible and well documented as possible, so that it won't be that disruptive, but it will be a change. We're not sure right now exactly what's going to happen to the builder code as it stands. We kind of wanted to get through 1.7 with the builder, continue to use the builder at least internally to build the application so that it will make it easier to do merges and updates between the 1.6 line and the 1.7 line. But kind of the recent issues with Maven 1 and the builder may push us to change that more quickly and move to something like Gradle, which, if you're not familiar with Gradle, it's a build tool similar to Maven, but without a lot of the problems of Maven, without trying to use XML to model a declarative build process, which is irritating. And in terms of having code generation for XML data type schema, so if you create any custom data types and you use the XSD model that we have right now for creating data types, part of the build process right now is building the Java classes that we use internally for managing those. And if we move to Maven 3, we have to build a plugin for Maven that's called Mojo, and it's a terrible development pattern. If we can do it in Gradle and move over to Gradle, it's a lot easier to develop plugins, so that's kind of what I'm hoping for, but we'll be making decisions on that fairly soon. So it should be much easier to build, install, update, and extend. Most of the pain involved is going to be migrating any existing code and modules, and like I said, we're going to try to figure out how to make that as kind of obstacle-free as possible. But anything built for 1.7 from 1.7 should be a lot easier to do. One way or the other, from your perspective, from developers outside of the NRG lab and XNAT development, you will not have Maven 1 anymore. So all the problems that are cropping up right now shouldn't be a problem. We still have open questions about Java applets and how we're going to deal with those in 1.7. And we'll talk a little bit more about those issues in the next section where I'm talking about the problems coming up with Chrome. One of the big issues is requiring people to install separate applications on the desktop, and how we manage that, and what we can do with a web application and remote deployment stuff. So, okay, so Chromageddon. Ginny Gurney, who runs CNDA, we thank her for the term Chromageddon, because she read about what was happening and freaked out and sent a frantic email asking about what we were going to do about Chromageddon. So stuck with that. So it refers to Chrome's deprecation and impending removal of support for the NPAPI framework. What this means is right now that is deprecated, and it's disabled by default in Chrome, and it's disabled every time you update Chrome. So if you update Chrome, you've got to go back and re-enable it, and you can continue to do that until September. And one of the versions is 46 or 47, when that comes out in September, is just going to remove support. You won't be able to enable it because it won't be there. They have a number of reasons why they are going to do that, and that's fine, but it makes it a little difficult because our primary exposure to this is the Java plugin, and obviously the Java plugin is how we run our applets, and that's how we manage the upload applet, the download applet, and the PlexiViewer applet. One kind of aside is that we currently have an image viewer module that we're trying to, it's enormous because it has a bunch of sample data in it, and we're trying to get it slimmed down so that we can post it as a module and you could use that. And that will give you a lot of the functions that are in the current viewer applet, and it looks way better. And it's a HTML5 hosted in the browser tool. Some of the things that are in the applet, though, are not there. Includes the ability to kind of drag and draw and annotate directly into the images. So it won't do everything, but so mainly the upload applet and the download applet are going to be affected. So Chrome will not support NPAPI, and the Java plugin will not be released in a non-NPAPI version. And that means for Chrome, no more embedded applets. So right now we have the upload applet is embedded in the page. You go there, and it's relatively smoothly integrated into the page. So those will go away. So there are a couple of solutions that between us, between the XNAT development team, and the people using XNAT that we can take. One solution is to use another browser. No other browser developer plans to eliminate NPAPI support. Firefox currently has some restrictions on NPAPI support. I'm not quite clear what they are, but the Java plugin works fine. I know one thing that Firefox has been doing recently is blocking all Flash plugins, or the Flash plugin, everything that's running within the Flash plugin that's been blocking, but it's not affecting the Java plugin. Safari uses it, or Safari supports it. I'm not sure about Internet Explorer. I believe that it does. Again, they have some restrictions on NPAPI. I'm not quite clear what they are, but as best I know, the Java plugin works properly. You might have to jump through some hoops to get it enabled within a security model, but overall it works there. Another solution is, and this is on our side, we're going to convert XNAT to run the applets as Java Web Start applications when we detect that you're using Chrome. We're going to try to get this into 1.6.5. If we can't get it into 1.6.5, we'll probably make it available as a download module, and that you just be able to extract over. And it should just be a few VM files that will be affected. As best you can tell, we don't have to modify the actual classes in the applet folder, and we just need the, there's already a JNLP file in the applets folder, I believe, and if not, there will be one, because when we do the applet build, we actually get the JNLP file generated, and all I got to do is take that and toss it into the applets folder, and we'll be good. So what will be required will be basically some JavaScript that detects, all right, I'm on Chrome, and in this case I'm going to present them as Java Web Start applications, which you can then click and will pop up and run in a separate window. Basically, Java running as a separate process outside of the browser. And then for non-Chrome browsers, they should continue to work the way that they're currently working. One other issue that just came up is the problem with the signing certificate expiring. So if you have applet jars and people are using those, the signature on them will basically fail because the certificate that we use to sign it expired a few days ago. We recently figured out that what we needed to be doing was time stamping the signed jars. And what time stamping does is it says, basically you have to have a trusted stamping authority to allow you to do the timestamp, which puts a timestamp in the digital signature, which says that this was signed at such and such a time. The certificate that signed it expires on some later time, so that even after that certificate has expired, you can verify that the jar was signed prior to expiration, and therefore the signing is still good. That doesn't help anyone who's got jars that were signed before that. But what we're currently doing is, and I mentioned this on the discussion group this morning, we're taking the jars from previous versions and signing those with the new certificate and with the timestamp authority timestamp added to it. So we'll make those available for download later today, and you should just be able to take those, plop them over into the applets folder of your deployed web app, and things should start working properly again. There were some slight changes between some of the versions in terms of what the applets expected in terms of the parameters coming from the page that's launching them. And I'm not quite clear on what those were, so we're going to make the different versions available. And as I mentioned on the discussion group, if you have a version that we're not signing and restamping and re-releasing, go ahead and contact me off the discussion group, and I'll do what I can to get you a re-signed version of those. So. And that's pretty much what we had. So if anyone has any questions in the Q&A group.
Just one guy who couldn't get audio or video.
Oh.
But it was working for me, so.
Okay. I would say I'm sorry, but you can't hear me. So that won't really help at all. This will be available. It should be available, I think, as a on YouTube. Although it seems like it's going to be available on YouTube under my personal Google Plus account, because sometimes I can get it to create these Hangouts as our XNAT page, and other times I can't, and I don't know what the difference is, and no one at Google seems to know what the difference is. So, you know, I guess you get what you pay for. We don't pay anything, so I can't really complain. Right, well, if anyone has any questions about any of this stuff, feel free to hit us up on the discussion group. and we can address them there. And the next teleconference, we're going to take August off and go into September. We should, by that point, have released 165, updated a number of things, and be well underway on 1.7 and be able to tell you a lot more about the requirements that we settled on for that effort, and have a better idea of what our release date is going to be. Well, as this announced in the discussion group, on the blog, and on our Twitter feed. And if there's anything you'd like to see or like to have us talk about, or if you have something that you're doing with XNAT that's cool that you think that people would like to see, again, contact us offline, or not offline, but off the discussion group directly, and let us know what you got, and we'd be real happy to.
They come to your house.
Yeah. Like I couldn't figure out how to do it otherwise. So, yeah, because we'd really like to have more people who are doing their own custom work, and that could be extensions to XNAT directly, data types, or even just how you're working with the data that's in XNAT and using it within your organization, and show that off to people. So that'd be very cool. Matt, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you again in a couple months, and yeah, then we'll see you again in a couple months. Thanks for joining, everyone, and we'll talk to you later.